All right. Exciting win last week. Really proud of our guys, how they came out, executed, played with a lot of urgency, and found a way to get the job done. But onward to the Temple Owls. Good team, good defense. They've had an impressive start to their season with 2 decisive wins, and it doesn't matter what level you're playing at, who you're playing. Winning is really, really hard, and these guys have made it look really dang easy. These first 2 weeks, they've played well on the defensive side. They fly around. They're well coached. I got a lot of respect for their head coach and their defensive coordinator, and they've had their guys ready to go. So excited for this week, and with that, we'll take some questions.
George? Yeah, Ben, I'm wondering, when you were at Washington State, when did you realize that John had the ability to run the way he does, and how much does that maybe expand or make your playbook more creative?
Probably our first scrimmage in the spring, my first year there, whenever he was the backup. We went live with some of the quarterbacks, and he made 2 guys miss. I can just remember it. Made 2 guys miss, and he looked kind of twitchy doing it. And so, from that moment on, I said, okay, this guy's got a little juice to him with the ball in his hands. So probably then.
How does that maybe expand your playbook as a play caller?
I mean, whenever you have a guy who has the ability to do that, and he's a willing runner to do that and understands moments and situations and what it takes to win, I think it broadens what you can call in certain situations to try and put stress on the defense any which way. And so, like that. I mean, it kind of expands it that way.
We'll go down the line. Colton? Ben, I wanted to ask you about your approach to the running game. Do you like to have like a primary carrier at a certain time in the season, or do you kind of like the by committee approach that you've had with Javvante and Tory and some of those guys?
I mean, if you have a guy who's, like Reggie Bush or Adrian Peterson or something, I mean, that's awesome. But you have to have a bunch of guys that I think you trust, a bunch of guys who will run behind their pads and not be, not be timid and run behind their pads and get extra hard yards whenever it needs to. But also, in the same token, you have to have guys who are willing to pass protect, who are able to get out on their relief throws and make something happen with the ball in their hands. So, there's a lot of different aspects that really kind of go into that position than just primarily carrying the football. And so you have to take that stuff into account also.
Yeah, I've been wanting to ask you about Derek Simmons, Heath Ozida. Just what did you see from them working back from the injuries in camp, and then how do you feel about the way they played against Michigan?
Really professional, the way they came back from injury and how they were in last week's preparation, just as far as being locked in, being dialed into what their assignment was. And I think they played with a certain level of physicality that allowed them to be successful in certain situations. So those guys put the work in. They were locked into their assignment, and I'm proud of the way that they came out and competed.
We see some quarterbacks that have speed. We see some quarterbacks that want to run over guys, but the vision that John has shown, I'm curious with him if you feel like that's watching so much film, he has a sense of what defenders might do. Is that innate? You just can't teach stuff like that? Where does his vision, kind of walk me through what you've seen in that regard?
I mean, he sees the field really well, whether it's in the passing game or whenever he pulls it down to run. But I think I've been on record saying I personally think John Mateer's a football player before he's a quarterback, and special one too whenever he pulls the ball down to run. So I mean, there's certain things that I wish I could sit here and tell y'all I taught him everything he knows in the run game. No, if you look me up, I was not a runner. All right, I was very slow, stiff, statue Division II quarterback, all right? So I definitely did not teach him that. He's just a special kid, a special athlete who the more he plays, he learns from certain moments and situations of how defenders may try to tackle or pursue, but he has such a great feel for the space out there on the field, and it's really instinctual. So, he's special.
Okay, second row, right side, Ryan Chapman.
We've seen Countess be really physical down to as a blocker in the run game, and we've heard that Javvante very similar reviews from his teammates. How important to that is your running game, and when did that become There's some OCs that just like those guys that go downfield and get out of the way. When did that become a tenet of you want receivers that block downfield?
So the day I got here, right, you preach physicality, especially to those skill kids, because there's a saying in football. It's kind of cliche: no block, no rock. Like if you're not a willing blocker, then the ball is usually not going to find you too. It's just kind of like some weird thing in nature or something. I have no idea. But I really think how you block whenever you don't have the ball in your hand, especially at the skill position, shows how much you love your teammates, because you want to see their success. You want to see the team's success, and doing your job and understanding that that's your job in that moment is to execute a block to the best of your ability, as physical as you can do it. I think that shows how much you love your teammates, and Keontae and Javvante are prime examples of that. They're great kids who everyone on the team loves, great personality, and they're kids that bring it every day at practice too. They have a great mindset towards everything that we're doing at all times, and those kids are awesome.
Next to Ryan, let's go to Tom.
Yeah, Ben, I see you're wearing a Jaren Kanig burger.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned that he's kind of exceeded expectations early on at tight end, but through these first 2 games, is there anything that you've learned about him, whether as a pass catcher or a blocker, that's just kind of surprised you?
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out the hat. He actually dropped this off in my office 17 minutes ago. He walked in. I was like, perfect timing, man. This is awesome. Again, I'll continue to say it about Jaren. He has a special skill set, just with how athletic he is, how fast he is. I mean, to put it plainly, but he's really understood the position of how to see space, get open in space, navigate his body to be successful. And I think him playing defense for 3 years really helped with a lot of that. He understands defensive structures, can understand where holes in the defense might be. But with all of that set aside, he puts in the work. He puts in the work, plain and simple, in the position room, out at practice, really consistent. So everything that Jaren does well on the field, I mean, it's not just by luck. He's really persistent in how he prepares in his process. So proud of him.
Joe Masano.
Yeah, Ben, I also have one on Jaren. Have you coached a guy before who has moved from one side of the ball to another and
Heck yeah.
picked it up quickly, successfully?
Heck yeah. Washington State. Cooper Mathers, number 24, was a walk-on linebacker at Washington State, moved to tight end. They're actually very, very similar. I love my man Coop to death. He was a little slower than Jaren, though, but he was savvy, had great hands, was smart. I mean, they're very similar. Jaren's a little more outgoing, but Coop, they have the same sense of humor, same kind of personality. Jaren's just more outgoing, but yeah, heck yeah, my tight end last year at Washington State, Cooper Mathers, almost the same story, played linebacker for the first, I think it was year, it was before I got there, but same kind of deal. He had such a feel for space and had soft hands, and he just, if he would have had a little bit more burners on him, I mean, he probably would have scored like 13 touchdowns or something last year. It was funny. I think he scored 7 last year, and if you know anything of the history of Washington State, that was the school record for tight end touchdowns at Washington State was 7. But yeah, Cooper Mathers, same kind of story, really.
I assume you've talked to Jaren about Cooper.
Oh yeah, I think Jaren and Coop they message each other on Instagram. I'm pretty sure. I talked to Coop actually a week ago. He's a great kid. Dad owns like one of those fish markets in Pike's Place there in Seattle, so he's chucking fish right now. But I talked to him last week actually, and he said that him and Jaren have like DM'd back and forth, especially early on whenever we got here, because Coop made plays last year, and Jaren would see it whenever we were doing like install cut-ups or something, and I'd hit him up and be like, dude, you're awesome. Or maybe ask him a question of like, if he wasn't getting something at the time, because Coop was really smart, ask him a question of, okay, hey, whenever Arbuckle says this, what exactly does he mean? Stuff like that. So, yeah, 2 great kids right there.
James Jackson.
Hey, Coach, when you talked about Michigan last week, the front 7 was kind of like the focal point
Yeah.
of their defense. What have you noticed about Temple in terms of what their defense can bring to you all and what that challenge is going to be?
Yeah, again, their defense coordinator does a great job. They are insanely sound. They'll present a bunch of different pictures and bring pressures from different places, and they do a really good job in that regard. Just off, the initial game planning, they do a good job of cycling out in and out their defensive linemen. Again, what I said last week about Michigan, that just tells me that they feel good about the guys that they have, and so they feel like they can take people in and out and not lose a step on anything. But they have a defensive end, I'm blanking on his name, number 25. I think he's a really talented player. Showed up in the first 2 games, was really disruptive, and so I think their defensive line does a lot of really, really good stuff. But as a whole, their defense, they're physical, they fly around. Their coordinator puts them in really good positions to be successful, so it's going to be a really good challenge for us. Oh, Cameron Stewart. I thought you were, yeah, no, that kid, I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know that guy, but yeah, no, that is his name. He's a good ball player, so.
Jesse, I wanted to ask you about Tory. I know we mentioned a lot about him, but I know he stood out a lot in fall camp, but I'm sure with a true freshman, you don't really know what to expect until you see him on the field. But through the first couple of weeks, what has stood out the most, just what he has shown you on the field?
Consistency, toughness, getting extra yards on runs. I think we ran an option play, and the safety screamed down really, really hard, and he found a way to split the corner and the safety, and ended up getting 7 yards on what probably would have been a 2-yard gain. Like, it's stuff like that. It's consistently finding ways to get a little bit more than maybe you're supposed to. But again, the kid's tough as nails. He's been consistent. His jaw's set every single day we go out to practice. Like, he's ready to work. And so I think all of that stuff put together with him being a great kid and being talented has put him in a position to have moments of success. And so really proud of him.
You mentioned about the running back rotation. There's a lot more that goes into it than just carrying the ball. Maybe even outside of his ability with the ball, what has stood out about his growth and maybe some of those other areas playing running back?
Yeah, especially with like a young running back, I think something you always worry about is just pass protection, because there's a lot that kind of goes into it, all the different looks that a defense can present, all the different calls that you might make on offensive line, and understanding where you're supposed to be. And he's been nails on it. I mean, he understands the game plan whenever we go in there. He understands his assignment in those moments, in those situations, and I think that's really, really good for a kid who, I mean, this time a year ago was playing high school football. So, yeah, that's been impressive.
What about Javvante Barnes? What do you think of his ability to block, run, all that?
Yeah, extremely selfless, extremely tough. Really high football IQ, a smart kid, and the same kind of thing that I was just saying about Tory. He understands where he needs to be, and he understands how he needs to do it. Whether it's a linebacker blitzing in the A gap, he does a great job of meeting that guy at the point of attack, and not just meeting him there, but having great body position and technique, and a good sense of physicality about him too, so the pocket doesn't collapse back. But then you see him on Deion's first touchdown. He made probably the touchdown. Him and Keontae really probably made the touchdown blocks on those plays. And again, that linebacker was screaming over the top, and I mean, he struck him well, didn't fly back, and ultimately propelled Deion to get into the end zone. And so, again, that's just, to me, that just shows how much you love your teammates. I mean, because it's really easy not to do that. It's even harder to do that, and really proud of him.
Ben, I'm curious, 2 games into this, you've had all fall camp and everything, but I'm sure you've learned a lot about your personnel and what works, what doesn't. How much do you allow yourself, or can you evolve what you do offensively? I think we all got a hold of analytics during the summer and said, okay, he runs 11 this much, 12 this much, 2 back here. But that's your personnel at Washington State. How does that change now that you're at a different place and you see different personnel throughout?
Well, I think it changes week to week, too, just based on the team that you're playing, because ultimately our biggest goal on the offensive side is to get into whatever personnel formation, motions, that ultimately give our guys operational space to be successful. And so that can come in a multitude of different ways. It can be 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 20, 21, 10, 00 personnel, 01 personnel. Yeah, like there's so many different ways that you can get to it, but it ultimately just comes down to how are we going to put these kids in the best position to be successful. That's my challenge every single week, because these kids, they work too hard, they're too bought in, and they're so willing for me not to put them in the best position to be successful. So that's my challenge at the beginning of every week is how can I make sure these guys have the best chance to go out there and get the job done.